Carroll County, Georgia. The courthouse stands at the edge of a sleepy town where the streets still shine from last night's rain. Early light filters through the oaks that line the square, touching the old red brick walls that have seen a century of verdicts, confessions, and tears. Reporters gather outside, coffee in hand, murmuring guesses about what will happen inside. A sheriff's cruiser idles near the steps, its engine rumbling low, its reflection pulsing on the courthouse glass doors. Inside, the air is heavy with the smell of polished wood and anxiety. Every sound, footsteps, whispers, the faint buzz of fluorescent lights, feels magnified. Court clerks shuffle papers, a bailiff adjusts his badge, and a few spectators glance nervously toward the hallway. It's the kind of morning that looks ordinary from the outside, routine, procedural, but beneath the calm is a current of quiet dread. Because everyone knows who's about to walk through those doors. A teenager. A girl whose name has been whispered in this town for weeks. A girl accused of something that shattered two families and left a community asking how someone so young could be tied to something so brutal. And as the minute hand reaches 9, every head turns toward the sound of hinges creaking open, the moment the ordinary ends and the story truly begins. The afternoon light has shifted, throwing long slanted shadows across the courtroom floor. The clock above the bench ticks toward the hour, each second loud enough to feel like a verdict. The judge removes his glasses and rubs the bridge of his nose before speaking. "I've heard the arguments," he says quietly. "I've listened to the testimony." His tone carries neither anger nor comfort, only the gravity of finality. He looks first at the defense, then at the prosecution, then finally at Sarah. "Miss Patrick, I will be denying bond at this time." The words land without emphasis, yet they strike the room like the slam of a door. No one gasps, no one shouts. The reaction is internal, a tightening of throats, a collective intake of breath that no one releases. Sarah doesn't cry. She simply stares forward, unblinking, as if the meaning takes a moment to find her. Her attorney's hand reaches for her shoulder, but she doesn't move. The deputy steps closer, the soft metallic clink of handcuffs echoing faintly as he prepares to escort her back. From the gallery, her father lowers his head, her grandfather's jaw stays locked, a fortress of disappointment. The silence is thick enough to feel physical, stretching from the back row to the bench where the judge's gavel rests untouched. A reporter sets down his pen. Somewhere outside, a siren wails briefly and fades, the only reminder that life beyond these walls continues. The judge gathers his papers. Court is adjourned. The gavel strikes once, a sharp, final sound that snaps the spell. Chairs scrape, whispers rise, and cameras flash, but at the center of it all, Sarah stands still. The deputy places the cuffs around her wrists. She flinches, barely. Her once confident shoulders are now curved inward, as though the weight of the decision has settled there. When she turns to leave, she doesn't look at her family. Her eyes drop to the floor, following the same path she took when she entered, but now every step is slower, heavier, stripped of the illusion that had carried her in. Her lips part slightly, as if to speak, but no sound comes out. The deputy beside her shifts his weight, subtly stepping closer, sensing what's unraveling. For a long, fragile moment, Sarah sits frozen in that space between realization and regret, a 17-year-old girl surrounded by adults, rules, and consequences far beyond her understanding. The soft light from the window catches her face, and for just a second, she looks younger, smaller, almost lost. In the second row, a reporter scribbles a single word in his notepad, fading. The word sits there, stark and final, the perfect description of what's happening before everyone's eyes. Not just the fading of a smile, but of certainty, of innocence, of the fragile story she thought she could control. The judge clears his throat and calls for the final statements. The defense attorney straightens his notes, the prosecutor folds his hands. Sarah doesn't move. She just stares ahead, the corners of her mouth trembling, the last remnants of that smile dissolving into something wordless and hollow. And just like that, the girl who entered the courtroom believing she'd walk out free is gone. What remains is someone quieter, smaller, and utterly changed. When court reconvenes, the air feels different, heavier, slower, as if every molecule carries the echo of what's just been said. The judge nods gently toward Emily Ward. "You may continue," he says, his voice low, respectful. She takes a sip of water, her hand trembling slightly, and looks down at the paper in front of her, not notes, just something to hold on to. The prosecutor steps closer, his tone quiet, careful not to push too hard. "Ms. Ward," he asks, "can you tell the court what you remember from that morning?" Emily exhales shakily. "I remember the call," she says. "It was my niece. She didn't know what she was saying. Just crying. I thought she'd had a nightmare." Her voice wavers. "Then I heard a man in the background, an officer. He told me to come to Tyus Road immediately." She pauses, pressing the tissue against her mouth. The courtroom listens in complete silence. "When I got there," she continues, "the house was surrounded by tape. Blue lights flashing on the windows. And I saw my niece, sitting in a blanket on the front steps. She wasn't crying anymore. She just kept asking if her mommy was cold." The words break mid-sentence, catching in her throat. A soft sob escapes before she can stop it. She turns slightly toward the judge, eyes red, voice barely above a whisper. "Your Honor, I know this isn't the trial. I know today's just about bond. But please, she shouldn't go home. Not yet. My brother deserves better than that. That little girl deserves better." The prosecutor says nothing more. There's nothing left to add. The truth, laid bare in those few sentences, has done more damage than any cross-examination could. Across the room, a reporter wipes his glasses. A woman in the back row quietly weeps into her sleeve. Even the deputy by the door looks down at his boots, avoiding eye contact with anyone. At the defense table, Sarah sits utterly still. The confident posture is gone, the practiced calm replaced by something rawer, confusion, fear, or maybe realization. Her fingers trace invisible lines on the tabletop, her breathing shallow and uneven. Her lawyer leans toward her, whispering something meant to comfort, but she doesn't respond. The smile that once defined her has vanished completely. In its place is a blank stare, as if she's trying to understand how the narrative she built, the good girl, the misunderstood teen, is slipping away right before her eyes. The judge thanks the witness softly and dismisses her from the stand. As Emily rises, she hesitates, glancing once at Sarah. For a brief, almost imperceptible second, their eyes meet, one filled with grief, the other with something unreadable. Then Emily turns and walks out, the door clicking shut behind her like the closing of a chapter no one wanted to write. The prosecutor rises, buttoning his dark jacket with a deliberate calm that hides the weight of what's coming. He's not dramatic, not loud, just precise. "Your Honor," he says, the state calls Emily Ward to the stand. The name lands quietly, but in the gallery, a few heads turn. A woman stands from the second row, clutching a folded tissue in her hand. She looks ordinary, tired eyes, hair pulled back, the kind of face you might pass in a grocery store and never remember. But when she begins her slow walk to the witness stand, the air in the courtroom shifts. Even the deputy nearest the door straightens, sensing the gravity that trails behind her. Each step seems to echo louder than it should. The clerk swears her in. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" Emily nods, her lips pressed tightly together. She sits down, adjusting the microphone with shaking fingers. For a second, she can't speak. The silence stretches, fragile and aching. The prosecutor waits, patient, eyes lowered out of respect. Finally, her voice breaks through, thin, trembling, but steady enough to carry. "My name is Emily Ward," she says, "and the man who was found in that bedroom, he was my brother." A murmur ripples through the room, one of those quiet, instinctive reactions that no one means to make. The judge lifts a hand gently, restoring silence. Emily continues, voice catching every few words. That morning, it was his daughter who found them. She's 5. She woke up around 7:15, went looking for her mom and dad. Her breath stutters. She saw them on the floor. Both of them. There was blood, everywhere. Her words collapse into a whisper, the kind that makes the walls feel closer. She presses the tissue to her face, apologizing softly, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cry. Every person in the courtroom is still. Reporters stop writing. Even Sarah's lawyers glance down, as if they've been momentarily disarmed. The judge's expression doesn't change, but his eyes look heavier now. Emily gathers herself, looking up at him, not as a witness, but as a sister begging for something human. Please, she says, her voice raw, breaking. Don't let her out. Not yet. Not after what my niece saw. Not after what she lost. For a long second, no one breathes. It's as if the air itself has frozen around her words. The prosecutor doesn't move, doesn't need to, the testimony speaks louder than any argument could. The judge nods, once, solemnly. The sound of the gavel is faint but final as he motions for a brief recess. At the defense table, Sarah Grace Patrick sits motionless. The smile that had carried her through the morning is gone. Her hands twitch, her eyes fix on the table, and her reflection in the polished surface stares back like a stranger. The deputy beside her shifts, the only sound in a room that feels like it's forgotten how to breathe. The courtroom goes still. Only the faint whir of the ceiling fans and the buzz of fluorescent lights fill the silence. The judge, a man with silver hair, deep lines at the corners of his eyes, and a patience born from decades of human messes, leans forward slightly. He's not a man easily moved by emotion, and certainly not by theatrics. His glasses sit low on his nose as he looks from the defense table to the girl seated beside her lawyers. Sarah meets his gaze for half a heartbeat, then lowers her eyes. He flips through the file before him, a thick folder marked with her name in bold black ink, Sarah Grace Patrick. Each page turns with a dry whisper, the sound of paper carrying weight heavier than words. Miss Patrick, he says, his tone measured, almost gentle. You've heard what your attorney said on your behalf. I'd like to hear from you. The courtroom leans forward as if the air itself is listening. Sarah swallows once, glances at her lawyer for approval, and then speaks in a voice soft enough to make the microphone strain. Your Honor, she begins, I never meant for anything bad to happen. I just want to go home. Her words are simple, childlike, rehearsed, but her face doesn't quite match them. There's no visible remorse, no tears, just that same fragile calm that could be read as poise, or something colder. The judge nods slowly, studying her. Where would you stay if I allowed bond, he asks. The lawyer answers for her, with her father, Your Honor, under 24-hour supervision. The judge continues, his questions steady and specific. Would there be access to phones? The internet? Who ensures compliance with curfew? Each answer arrives quickly, polished, ready, as if they've practiced this dance 100 times. Sarah keeps her head down, hands clasped, every inch of her posture designed to say obedient, respectful, safe. For a few moments, it almost feels like the tension is easing. The judge's expression softens a little, a bailiff shifts his stance, even the gallery begins to relax. Someone whispers, she might actually get it. A tiny glimmer of hope flickers across Sarah's face, a breath, a blink, a quiet thought that maybe she'll be home tonight, sleeping in her own bed. The defense attorney straightens his tie, confident, but beneath the surface, something in the judge's eyes changes, a small narrowing, a flicker of hesitation. He's seen too many faces, too many stories rehearsed in the name of innocence. He closes the folder, sets his pen down, and takes a slow breath. Thank you, he says finally, his voice echoing softly through the room. I've heard the defense. Then he turns toward the prosecution table. Mr. Hayes, the judge says, his tone shifting. You may call your witness. The room settles as Sarah takes her seat beside her attorneys. Papers rustle, microphones buzz faintly, and the judge nods for the defense to begin. Her lead attorney, a man in his 40s with a calm southern drawl, stands and buttons his coat. He speaks with the practiced rhythm of someone who has spent years convincing strangers that mistakes can happen to good people. Your Honor, he begins, his voice steady, respectful, almost tender, we are not here to argue guilt or innocence today. We are here to ask for fairness. For perspective. For a chance. He gestures lightly toward Sarah, who sits still, eyes lowered in a posture of remorse that looks almost too perfect. This young woman, he continues, is an honor roll student. A member of Catalyst Church. She was baptized just last year. She babysits for her neighbors, volunteers at youth events, and has never so much as had a parking ticket. She is not a danger to anyone, and she's certainly not a flight risk. Every word is carefully chosen, every pause intentional. The attorney paints her life like a soft watercolor, gentle strokes of goodness, faith, and community. He speaks of routine, of structure, of a young girl who deserves supervision and guidance, not a cell. Behind him, Sarah's family sits in rigid rows, her grandfather in a gray suit, back straight, jaw tight, her father with his eyes fixed on the table, hands clasped as if in prayer. Their silence says as much as any testimony, a quiet, desperate agreement with every sentence the lawyer utters. As the defense speaks, Sarah's composure doesn't waver. She nods at the right moments, folds her hands neatly on the table, and breathes slowly, like someone following invisible cues. From a distance, it works. She looks composed, trustworthy, the kind of girl you'd never picture in a police report. The defense keeps layering the portrait, honor roll, church, no record, remorse, family support. The phrases stack up like bricks in a wall meant to keep her safe from what's coming. For a moment, it almost feels believable. The audience, the judge, the journalists, the strangers who came to watch, can almost forget why she's here. They can almost imagine that this is just a misunderstanding, a mistake of circumstance. The attorney lowers his voice, softer now, personal. Your Honor, he says, Sarah Grace Patrick is not defined by one night, one tragedy. She is defined by her character, her upbringing, and her potential. Please, let her go home to her family. The room exhales as he finishes. Pens stop moving. The judge leans back, thinking, his expression unreadable. For the first time, it seems like Sarah might actually walk free. The smile returns, faint, hopeful, restrained, like a small light flickering behind glass. But no one knows that before this hearing ends, that same light will go out completely. 17-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick steps into the courtroom as if she's walking into a familiar hallway at school. Her beige jail uniform hangs a little loose on her frame, but she carries it with an odd kind of grace, chin lifted, shoulders back, eyes steady. There's no trembling in her hands, no tear-streaked cheeks, none of the signs people expect when they picture guilt. Instead, there's that same smile she's worn in cheer photos and family portraits, polite, poised, and rehearsed. For a moment, it throws people off. Reporters lower their phones, exchanging glances as if silently asking, is this really her? The deputy beside her keeps a measured pace, hand hovering near her elbow but never touching. Sarah's white sneakers make the softest sound on the polished floor, echoing just enough to mark her presence. Every seat in the gallery is filled, classmates from Carrollton High, church members from Catalyst, neighbors who once waved to her at the gas station. Now they all sit still, watching like they're afraid to blink. Some look at her with pity, others with disbelief, and a few with something harsher, anger disguised as silence. Sarah doesn't look at them. Her gaze moves toward the judge's bench, toward the flag behind him, toward the rows of unfamiliar faces who hold her future in their hands. She seems almost confident. As if she believes this is a misunderstanding that will sort itself out with enough calm explanations and polite smiles. Her attorney whispers something in her ear, something about staying composed, about remembering what they practiced. She nods once. That smile flickers but doesn't fade, but there's something strange about it up close. It's not the warm smile of a hopeful teenager, it's tighter, more deliberate, the kind of expression people wear when they know eyes are measuring them. It's not defiance, it's control. The control of someone who's been told to stay calm, to look trustworthy, to appear like the good girl everyone once believed she was. From the back row, a reporter scribbles a note, looks like she's walking into prom, not court. A deputy shifts his weight, uneasy. The judge watches quietly, his expression unreadable. The hum of the light seems louder now, and somewhere in the gallery, someone exhales just to remind themselves to breathe. To anyone else, she could be any other high school senior, the kind who plans college applications and homecoming photos. But here, beneath the seal of the state of Georgia, none of that matters. Because today, Sarah Grace Patrick isn't a student. She's the accused.